Aloha and welcome to another lesson. In this video, we're going to be talking about project 10.3, the soft rainbow light. It's a pretty easy project, but it's a kind of fun one too at the same time. We're going to be using our Neopixel again, and this is going to be a lot of fun to set up. So let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. We've got, if you remember the Neopixel project, we're going to need our Neopixel with the three male to female connectors. We're also going to need our potentiometer from before, and we're going to need our pins as our regular shunts that we've been using all along. So the circuit is going to look like this. So much like before, we've got our Neopixel, and please be very careful with your pins here. Make sure that when you've got the pins, or when you've got the LEDs facing you, signal is going to be the one here on the far left. You're going to run that over to pin 15, and then you've got your power, which is going to be the middle one, and you've got ground. Again, they're going to the opposite of what they should be, but as long as you stay consistent, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code that's behind this. It doesn't really show it too well here, but let's see. I'll pull up the VS code. So what we've got going on here, we import Neopixel. I think we've still got Neopixel on our Pico. If you don't, you're going to need to go ahead and upload that. It's in the same directory as this. We're setting up red, green, and blue to be 0. These are going to be global variables. You'll see why in a second. Neopixel, we're setting up for 8 different pixels, and we're going to be using it on pin 15. And we're setting up the ADC, the potentiometer, on 26. So don't worry about wheel. Wheel is going to calculate, well, let me just explain real quick what wheel does. Wheel is going to set the global variables red, green, and blue. And it's going to do it based on the numbers that it receives here. It's going to break it into its red, green, and blue channels and put those out. So don't worry too much about what that does mathematically. But down here, before we start everything, we're going to set our brightness at 20, and we're going to go and then we're going to start up our infinite loop. We're going to go say ADC value, which is going to read our 16-bit value from our potentiometer. And we're going to divide it by, we're going to give it a floor division by 257. That'll give us a number between 0 and 256. Then we'll start a loop from J, from 0 to 7, essentially. And what that's going to do is it's going to loop over each of the pixels that we have in our Neopixel. And for that, we're going to call on the wheel function. The wheel function is going to set red, green, and blue accordingly. So we're going to take that number that's between 0 and 255, and we're going to add to it J, which is going to be between 0 and 7. It's going to be our pixel times 255 divided by floor division by 8. So we're going to be setting this up so that each number, or each of our pixels, is a little bit off. It's going to have a little shift of color between the two. And then we're going to have wheel do its magic, come up with a green, blue, and red for us. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to set the specific pixel, which is J, because we're looping over J. We're going to set the red, green, and blue values of that. Then we're going to show it. So we'll do that for all 8 of the pixels. Then we'll sleep for 100 milliseconds. Then we'll go back and read the potentiometer again, and then we'll do it all over again. So that's what the code is doing. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'll stop the share. And this is our naked breadboard here. I'll take our potentiometer and I'll move it over to here. Let's find a good place for it. So I'll set it up off of the 29 here. And if we do this, then it's going to be easier to set up our pins, because we know that we'll be setting in at 35, 37, and 39. So at this point, we'll go ahead and let's set up our, let's run ground to ground. So we're going to take our blue, we use a blue shunt to do our, to set up our ground. So we go over here and we set up ground, and ground is going to be in the outer. So we're going to have it in the outer, even though it says plus here, they're using it backwards. So we're going to do it, and we're going to be consistent. We're going to run ground to there. Then we're going to do power. In power, we're going to go from our 3.3 So we're going to set up our 3.3 volts. We're going to run those into the near rail. So we're going to set it up like that. So let me bring it over here. So you can see we've got the outer is going to be our ground, and we've got the power going into the near rail. So we've got that set up. Now we're going to go ahead and run our, let's run pin 20. Let's set up the data pin for our potentiometer first. That's going to go into the middle. So we're going to go over to here. So we're going to go here, and then we're going to run this to pin 26. Pin 26 is right there. Go ahead and stick it in there. So yay, we've got that done. Now we need to set up our power and ground off of here. So let's go ahead and get a nifty neato little red shunt. And our red shunt here is going to go from our power. And which side is our power? Our power is the one on the far right. So we're going to run our far right one, which is going to be one. Move this over so we can see. It's going to be one over from there. So it's, it's 2 pins away from the data line there. So if we look at that, it doesn't look like it, but we do have a space in there. And then our power, if you remember, we ran that into the near rail. So we go over here and we put it into the near rail for power. If we look over here, we can see, yes, our red one, because we're using red for our power. Then for our ground there, we're going to run our ground from the first pin over here, which will be right off of the number. So it's going to be right here. We run it from there. We're going to run ground. Remember, we put that into the outer rail. So it's over here. So we've got our blue here. And if you look down here, blue is in the outer rail too. So it's all consistent. So that's the nice thing about using like for like in terms of your coloring. Now, next up, we have our beautiful Neopixel with our 3 wires. So if you remember what I said, if you have your, let me see, how did this look? Okay, so if you have your Neopixel facing you, this one right here is going to be your signal cable. So you've got signal, then you've got power in the middle, and you've got ground on the outside. So let's take our signal right here, and we're going to take signal, and we're going to run this over to pin 15. So we go over here to pin 15, we stick that over there, and then we have our power, which is red. And where is red? Again, where all the other reds are, which is the inner rail over here. So we put it there. Then we take brown, and brown here is acting as our ground. So our ground is going to go into the outer rail. So we set that up like that. So now we should have everything set up. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the potentiometer is set all the way down to the lowest value here. Not that it matters, but then I'm going to plug this up. And hold on, let me rest that there. And I'm going to plug in the device. Okay, so I'm just going to keep our thing right here and look at it. But I'll go and pull up Visual Studio Code, not that you can see it, and then I'll run it. And you'll see that it immediately pops up, some colors here. It's a little bit strong, so why don't I stop it? And the brightness we had set to 20. I'll try toning that down to 10 and see if that helps us here in the video, and see if it makes any better video. And not really so. But if I block it from the sun a little bit, we can see it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it running here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to tweak our little potentiometer here. So you'll notice that as I do it, remember I talked about how it's going to have our colors turn, and that's what it's doing. It's offsetting the colors of each pixel as we turn it all the way up. So then we go back the other way, and we're just going the opposite direction with our motion. So I think that's pretty cool. I really think that's pretty cool. I'll try to cup it and hide it from the light a little, or block it. But you see that as we turn our potentiometer, it does change the colors. It kind of goes around the globe there. So anyhow, this is neat fun. So this is one way you can manually control that. You use the potentiometer. So anyhow, I hope this has been a fun lesson for you. Again, we're just combining things that we've learned in the past and learning, how to connect them together and control things in different ways. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I will see you in the next lesson.